All right, so I am recording this right after I recorded this week's up-and-coming Lopes Goes Last podcast. It should be out soon if it's not out already. If it is, check it out. If not, then whenever it is available, check it out. But for this video, I wanted to give my reactions to Survivor Series. I know, I'm a few days late, obviously. Most everybody has already posted their reactions. I have not had that opportunity yet, and so I'm going to take this opportunity right now. For those of you who watched my Survivor Series predictions, first of all, thank you. It performed very well in terms of overall viewership and retention rate. I was very surprised and very happy to see that there is some interest in our wrestling videos that we're going to have on the channel, and that makes me want to continue to do them, obviously. So thank you for that. And second of all, you will have seen what my match predictions were, along with my friend Daniel, and we both got just about everything wrong. It felt like. Now, we didn't get everything wrong. We probably got about 50-50 right in some instances, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. 5 total matches. I think I got 3 of them right. I predicted 3 of them right and 2 of them wrong. Both War Games matches we both got incorrect. And so, you know, one of those things where they took it in a different direction than what a lot of us thought it was going to go. Great show. I certainly loved the actual show itself. I thought it was very fun all throughout. I thought that there wasn't necessarily a absolutely phenomenal like 5-star match, but I thought both War Games matches were really, really good. That women's War Games match was my favorite match of the entire night. Certainly the men's War Games match was right there as well. But I think the women's War Games match, I liked it just a little bit more. And obviously, Io Sky is just a saint and a blessing from God himself. You know, it's just a lot of fun. And again, they took the match in a different direction than what I thought. You know, the more I thought about it after I posted the video, I kind of started to think that the good guys were going to win. You know, Team Bianca with Charlotte and Becky and Shotzi. I did kind of think that they were going to win and start that split with Damage Control, and who knows if that's still going to happen. SmackDown has not happened yet, so we don't know where they're taking it at this point as I'm recording it. So I assume that you're going to kind of start that. It might not be very aggressive right away, but I'm sure you're going to start to see some seeds planted there of Bayley getting kicked out of the group, I presume. But you never know, so we will see how that goes. But obviously for you guys, I picked Damage Control to win with some logical arguments that I still feel like they could have done, but it didn't happen. I really thought that if Damage Control was going to lose, that they were going to have like Bayley cost them the match by, you know, telling Io to do something crazy and then it backfires. You know, she jumps off the cage and lands just like face first. She's done for the match. She's not doing anything else. It's basically 4-on-3. You know, Bayley's fighting somebody and Asuka tries to spit her mist and accidentally spits it in Bayley's face because Bayley's not paying attention, or like that's what I kind of thought was going to happen. But really, they just beat him clean, and Bayley, you know, even the commentator said was the MVP of the match. She was saving the match for her teammates that weren't performing well over and over and over again, and so I'm interested to see where they go because it's not where I thought they were going to go with it at all. It's not necessarily that the good guys won. I just thought if the good guys would win, that it would be because Bayley messed up, and that's not how it went down at all. So we'll see how it goes. In terms of the Gunther versus Miz match, it went exactly how I thought that would. That was, I mean, literally exactly. I told my wife that there was going to be a spot in the match where Miz kicks Gunther in the gonads and hits a skull-crushing finale immediately to a very near 2.5 count. That everybody goes, oh, we almost had it, and then Gunther's going to pretty much immediately win, and that's exactly what happened. So, you know, not too much to say about that part of it, but it was a good match, a little bit better than what I thought. There's a reoccurring pattern, guys. Every person almost that steps into the ring with Gunther has either the best match that they've had all year or sometimes the best match of their entire career. And that's a reoccurring pattern because Gunther brings the best out of every single competitor that he's in the ring with. And that's why we all enjoy his matches so much, is because, first of all, they're different. They're structured differently. His offense is different. He's a cyborg in the ring. He never stops. He never quits. He just keeps moving forward. And obviously, he takes a lot of punishment as well. And then at the same time, the quality of the matches are still top-notch. Some of the best, if not the very best, on the entirety of WWE on both shows. Gunther's matches are consistently great, with the exception of a couple that I didn't particularly enjoy. But again, that's like 2, maybe 3, and he's had dozens of title defenses at this point that have all been great. So, yeah, good match, better than what I thought. Miz looked good. Gunther looked good. I think it accomplished everything that it set out to. Now, Rhea and Zoe wasn't in love with the match. Definitely wasn't a bad match. I think Zoe looked really good. I think the pacing was good. I think that obviously the story that they were trying to convey was that Zoe was feisty and was not going to give in and was never going to back down from Rhea until Rhea obviously eventually overpowered her in the end and picked up the victory. Again, not a standard match, but, nothing too crazy there. Told a decent story, had a decent match. If I had to rate it out of 5 stars, I'd give it a nice solid 3. Nothing too great, nothing bad. Definitely did the job to just further Rhea Ripley's title reign. And if that's what you were going for, that's what they accomplished. And then, obviously, there was Santos Escobar. It was originally supposed to be facing Carlito, and that's what we talked about on the podcast. But as I mentioned at the beginning of that, we hadn't watched SmackDown because it hadn't come out at that point. And on SmackDown, Carlito was attacked by Santos and hurt his arm. And Dragon Lee actually stepped in to face Santos at Survivor Series, and so it was Dragon Lee versus Santos Escobar, with Santos picking up the win. That was another one that I got right. I feel good about that one. Even with Dragon Lee, I wouldn't have changed my answer. I still think that when you turn somebody heel like that, especially with all the heat that he's been getting in Santos, obviously, you can't have him lose his first match. Dragon Lee is young enough and fresh enough in the audience's eyes where he can bounce back from this no problem, and that wouldn't be too much of an issue. So I think, again, decent match. It was a little quick. I think it could have benefited from, another 4 minutes of storytelling there. I didn't necessarily think that they got everything that they wanted out of it, but they told a good story, and obviously both of those guys are very athletic and very fun to watch. And Dragon Lee is just going to be an absolute star. I liked him a lot in NXT, and I'm happy that he's already on the main roster. I didn't think NXT necessarily needed him, and I didn't think he needed NXT, so it's nice to see him already there and chomping at the bit to go. And lastly, Men's War Games. Again, second best match of the night for me. I thought it was really good. I think that the way that they had to kind of announce Randy Orton coming back in advance, I think it ended up working out. I was worried that with that Chicago crowd being so hot for CM Punk all throughout the night, that when Randy Orton's music eventually did hit, that they would either not make any noise or they would boo, but they didn't. They were very happy to see Randy. Didn't hear really any boos going on, just nothing but gracious cheers, which was awesome to see. Great to see Randy Orton back. He looked phenomenal. I mean, he looked like he put on 10 to 15 pounds of muscle, which is awesome at his age, and obviously with his medical condition. For those of you who don't know, he was out for 18 months with double fusion back surgery, and doctors told him he should never wrestle again, but he is back, and he looks great. So awesome to see him return. JD McDonough took an RKO from off the top of the cage. Now, obviously, Randy Orton didn't climb up to the top of the cage and give him an RKO, but JD McDonough was thrown off the top of the cage by Sammy, and I think, was it Jay? I can't remember. It was two of the two people. Maybe it was Seth. I don't remember. Threw him off the cage right into the waiting arms of Randy Orton down below in the ring to an RKO. Great spot. Really, really fun. Again, just a good, fun match. Thought that the Judgment Day were going to win because I thought Randy Orton was going to turn on, I thought, Seth Rollins. Obviously, if I had known what I'm going to talk about next, I would not have predicted that. But that's what I thought. I thought maybe he'd turn on at least somebody in the match and Judgment Day would pick up the win. But he didn't. Randy Orton stayed straight as an arrow, babyface all the way through, and the good guys won both matches. A pretty rare instance. The only time I can recall that was, I think, 2019. It was War Games, also ironically in Chicago for NXT. That was a match with with the women. I cannot remember all of the women on the team. I know that the babyface team had Tegan Nox, Dakota Kai, and Candice LeRae, and I think it had Rhea Ripley on it, or maybe Raquel Gonzalez at the time. Now, obviously, Rodriguez. Can't remember now, but the babyfaces had a 2-on-4 disadvantage and ended up still winning the match. It was a great match. And then later on in the night, Tommaso Ciampa, Keith Lee, now Dijak, and who ended up being Kevin Owens as the surprise entrant. Also a surprise last-minute entrant where he wasn't in the cage. I guess they like to do that in Chicago, versus the Undisputed Era. And so the good guys ended up winning that one as well. So that's the only time I can remember where both War Games matches, since it's come back to WWE, ended in either both good teams winning or both bad teams winning. And it happened this time around. And again, it was really fun. And obviously, I would say that if the show had ended right there, I would have been happy as a clam. I would have been excited for the next 8 weeks before the Rumble. I am going to the Royal Rumble this year in Tampa, Florida. I cannot wait, especially now. Yeah. So obviously, the story of the night was CM Punk, and would he come back? And I came on this podcast and I said some things that I will reiterate here so that you guys can understand where I'm coming from. I meant every word that I said in that podcast. In retrospect, or excuse me, in kind of summary, I should say, I said that I didn't think that his backstage issues that he was going to come along with were worth his value to the company in the ring. I didn't think that it was worth splitting backstage morale and kind of dividing the locker room with him being there. I didn't think it was worth it. And I thought that he had become really a cancer on the wrestling world at this point. And I meant every single thing that I said. But CM Punk did come back on Saturday. He returned for the first time to WWE television in 9 years. And when his music hit, none of the logical arguments that I just made to you, or the ones obviously that I made more in depth during that podcast, mattered to me. None of them mattered to me, because when I heard the kind of static go and I saw the name pop up on the big jumbo screen in the middle of the arena, and Cult of Personality playing in the background, and 15,000 people going bonkers, and I mean bonkers, by the way, I became an 11-year-old kid again for 3 minutes. I was back in my old house with my parents in Florida, watching Monday Night Raw in my parents' bed, rooting for CM Punk. Or sitting on my couch in eventually what would become basically the media room for myself, watching Monday Night Raw when I came home from school on Tuesday, because I couldn't stay up that late to watch the whole show, so I'd record it and watch it the next day. And man, CM Punk, that was the guy all throughout high school. And then obviously when I was 17 years old, he ended up leaving WWE, but throughout my whole childhood, teenagehood, that was the guy. That was the guy. And I turned into that 11-year-old kid again. And it was a wonderful moment for me. I truly was blessed to have that. And I guess it's one of those things where, like it was like when Hulk Hogan came back and everybody, even though he'd spent the last decade trying to put WWE out of business and was a bad guy that whole time, he was still Hulk Hogan. And so all those, 20-some-year-olds like me, at that time when he came back, that was their childhood hero. And I said on the podcast this same thing, and I'll say it again. There was no wrestler that I admired more than CM Punk. He has left an indelible mark on my life. I am straight edge, just like he is. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs, and he's not the only reason that I choose that lifestyle, but he is a big one. So he's left a big mark on my life, much like he did a lot of people, much like he did a lot of the locker room in WWE right now, or in AEW, or in New Japan. He was a big influence on a lot of people. And so, again, when his music hit, none of the bad things that ran through my head, none of the logical bad things, for 3 minutes, none of that mattered. I was happy to see one of my wrestling heroes back. And then when it was over, all those things came flooding back of like, oh man, how's the locker room going to react? How are the fans going to react in other cities other than Chicago? Obviously it's Michael Jordan and then it's CM Punk, like one notch down in Chicago. So it's not guaranteed that that's the reaction he's going to get everywhere else. He could get booed out of the building in certain cities and certain states. We'll see. What was going to happen with all that? And so far, things seem to be mostly positive. It seems like just about everybody, with the exception of a couple, either were happy to see him back or tolerated him being back and were not going to put up much of a fuss. The only ones that obviously were reported that were upset were Seth Rollins, which I think at this point it's pretty clear that it's story. He may not really be happy that he's back. I've heard him say some bad things about Punk in the past, so maybe he really isn't part of him is happy that he's back. I don't know. But certainly I think the reaction and everything, that's all going to be story. And I think that's your WrestleMania match right there, probably. Whether it's for the title or whether it's not, I think you're getting Punk Rollins regardless. Whether it was Seth and then obviously Drew McIntyre as well, although there haven't been a whole lot of reports since he stormed out of the pay-per-view after he was done. I kind of chalk that up to be he was probably just playing up the fact that he lost the match. Or maybe he was upset that Punk came back. I don't know. But either way, those are really the only two stories that I've heard in terms of people not being super happy that he's back. He cut a promo on Raw that has a lot of mixed reviews. Wasn't obviously my favorite promo of all time that CM Punk has done. He's obviously done way better. And I think people were expecting something like what happened in AEW when he came back for the first time, where he just scorched earth and badmouthed a lot of people and said that he left professional wrestling in 2005 and he was just coming back in 2021 because he didn't count WWE as professional wrestling. I'm sure he was probably, people were probably hoping that it was going to be that, but it wasn't. I know that one of the main factors in his promo being the way it was because Randy Orton versus Dominic Mysterio ran long, and so they had to cut his promo shorter than what it should have been. So obviously he had to deal with that. And I'm surprised when I heard that CM Punk didn't put up much of a fuss with that. I feel like at this point he'd be like, oh, really? I've been here for a day and you're already cutting my stuff, right? You'd feel like that's how Punk would react, but nothing that I have read or heard has said that that's how he reacted. So, maybe he's in a more positive environment. Maybe he has learned a little bit from his mistakes in the past and he's not going to be too much of a problem. Or maybe it's going to be peachy keen for a couple of months and then he's going to lose at WrestleMania and then he's going to start throwing fits, or he's not going to be in the main event at WrestleMania and he's going to start throwing fits. Who knows? The point is CM Punk is back and I cannot wait for what happens next. Again, I said this, I'm going to the Royal Rumble this year. I am so excited to see how things play out and to see how things go from here. And speaking of the Rumble, before I leave for the Rumble, we will be doing another Royal Rumble predictions. Again, I will be at the show. And so, it could take me a little bit to actually do some predictions, or not predictions, some reactions, like kind of it was this week, just because I had some things going on early in the week, couldn't get to it. But right now, I don't think I've ever been more excited for anything in my entire life outside of when I got married, because I've always, my whole life, wanted to go to the Royal Rumble. It's my favorite pay-per-view. I almost went a couple of years ago. I got sick, but I'm also glad I didn't go, because that was the year that Lesnar and Ronda returned and won the Rumble, or won the respective Rumbles, and it's universally recognized as one of the worst Royal Rumble pay-per-views of all time, if not the very worst. And so I'm kind of happy that that wasn't my experience. I would have been pretty bummed out if I flew all the way out to St. Louis where it was, and then obviously it was a terrible show. But this year, I cannot wait, because you got to think, obviously you got potential CM Punk stuff coming up. You've got potential Rock stuff, maybe. Maybe that's when you start, if you're still wanting to do Rock versus Roman at some point. I don't know how you're going to do it, because I feel like at this point, Seth versus CM Punk is going to main event night one, which means that The Rock ain't main eventing night one, which means he's probably not going to compete if he's not going to be in the main event. I mean, that would be silly if you had The Rock not be in the main event, especially versus Roman Reigns, who I would only presume would still have the Universal Championship at that point. So, but you never know. The Rock could show up, and that's how you start, one of the feuds. I don't know. That could happen. Probably not, but maybe. Again, obviously CM Punk, and just all of the excitement surrounding this year's WrestleMania. It's going to be so amazing. I can't wait. But that's my reaction to Survivor Series. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section below. I would love to kind of chat with you guys about what you guys thought about each match, or even just any particular match. Laugh at me that I got both War Games matches wrong, although I will say I feel like the majority of people picked at least one of the bad guy teams to win, so I'm definitely not alone in that. But let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.